Captured by Women is brought to you by Nido Fortigro. Your love, their future.
It's the first day of the last month of the year, and we are grateful to God for bringing us this far. Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to watch Captured by Women on TV3. My name is Rosemond Aite, and I'm co-hosting the show with Dr. Nanama Ajeman. On today's show, we'll discuss the abuse of the use of sirens by government appointees, by government institutions, and also by private citizens, and what can be done to stem this trend. We will also talk about the so-called investment companies who operate various investment schemes that end up making people lose money. We'll discuss that and what we need to look out for when making investments. And we will also look at general ongoing developments within the banking sector. Thirdly, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection this week launched a 16-day activism against gender-based violence. We will talk about that and find out exactly what will be done during these 16 days. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. As you know, the show is sponsored by GTP, by Yamvita, and by Nido. Please stay with us. We'll take a couple of messages and come back.
Government vehicles persistently and consistently flout traffic regulations by putting on sirens and rushing knowingly to Parliament and other places we all do not know about, all in a bid to make sure they get there on time. But the question is, they are citizens like ourselves, so why don't they join the traffic queue and also get to their destination whatever time they do? And this seems to be a very worrying concern, and on the floor of Parliament, First Deputy Speaker Joe Osei-Wusu raised that concern and asked the MTTU to make sure that they clamp down on these activities because it is wrong. Rosemond, it is very unusual for them to be talking about this on the floor of Parliament, but I think it's reached a point where everyone has had it to the brink. I feel if you calculate your timing well, you should be able to get wherever you're getting in due time, and not that abuse of the sirens and the lights and the noise that accompany it. Because I've had situations where ambulances that genuinely even need space to maneuver to get a patient from one hospital to another are not even given the chance because it's become a penchant for everyone to use it. And so they think they're just abusing it. I think this trend is worrying, and it's time we really talk about it and make sure they are punished for it so that we can all take a cue.
Exactly, Nana. I mean, I get so irritated and frustrated when you're in traffic. We're all struggling to get to our destinations. And some ministers of state and even private citizens who have fitted their cars with some of these sirens, you know, basically shoo everybody off the road so they can get to where they want. It's very, very irritating. But what intrigues me is the comment by the Honorable Joe Osei-Wusu asking the police to clamp down on members of Parliament. Nanama, is that, I mean, yes, that's the right thing to do, but let's get real here. Can an ordinary police personnel on the street, seeing, say, a V8 coming, stop the car, see an MP, and arrest the person for flouting the traffic regulation? So I think that, well, it's a good call, but I think in terms of practicality, I think if that has to be done, and which is, you know, must be done, it must be done in a way that it will be realistic, because I don't think it is realistic, and I don't think that it will happen. I feel that Parliament must set a good example. The MPs must set a good example. So they themselves must somehow, if they want to contribute to lessen the problem, self-regulate themselves. What mechanisms is Parliament itself putting in place to self-regulate its members, not to contribute to these abuse? So that is where I would want to see some effort being made. But to throw it up there to say that the MTTD should do it, I don't think that they would even have, you know, the temerity to do that, to stop an MP and arrest the person. So that's where my problem lies.
But I agree with you, because when it comes to these things, I mean, how on earth would we? And the unfortunate thing is sometimes they're even accompanied by the police themselves. You've got a motorcade probably leading them on the side. And so if a policeman sees his colleague police leading an MP
They actually even stop everybody
They'll flag, and once
yes.
you know, the police will take the lead to go and inform him at that post that someone is coming, and he would ask, direct the traffic in such a way that he can come and pass. So I think what they fail to realize is when they abuse these privileges, because merited, there may be some days that a particular, I know, for example, I can only give a scenario where maybe the foreign ministry will need to send an ambassador from one place to another, and he needs to rush. So fair enough, those will probably be one-offs. But if they consistently do it, then for the citizenry, it just makes it like you are better than the rest of us, and really you are not, because we put you in power, and I feel they need to be in the traffic to feel what goes on so that they can start putting in changes to make sure that the world is better for all of us. But if you think you're above the law and you want to push everyone to the shoulder and then just go through, I don't think it will work for us.
And you see, the thing is, what I've seen that it's the problem is not just the government appointed, even government institutions and agencies have this sense of entitlement, like when they are in traffic, because I've seen so many, when I watch out for their sign, the signages on the car, they are clearly governmental agencies. And there's this sense of entitlement where they feel they can't be in traffic, everybody get out of the way and let me pass. And something must be done about it. It is not right. But the other issue also is that, we all know how it works in Ghana. And if people have a problem with the police, everybody has a friend who works with a friend who knows a policeman. So how, even looking at it from a layman's perspective, people who are generally caught flouting traffic regulations, when they are stopped by the police, either call somebody who, police officer they know, or somebody who knows a police officer to get them out of it. So I think that with all these things, the power of the police is undermined. So if we really are serious about clamping the stick, stopping it, I think that there needs to be a very rigorous system that, will be devoid of manipulation, whether it's political manipulation, whether by way of fraternal or association, so that we can all benefit, because it's a nuisance to everybody. I'm sure if we did a poll today, and ask people, what they thought about this thing, everybody would have something bad to say about it. So it's a good idea. The MTCD has to step up the police, but the police need to be empowered, and the right systems have to be put in place, to stem this tide.
And the repercussions when you do it, the punishments that go with it, have to be out there for everybody to see. Because if I flout the rule and you allow me to pass, then you set a precedent for the next person to equally do that. Because I come from a background where I've been taught certain basic things, and so even when genuinely, let's say I'm moving from TV3 to go to the hospital, and I have an emergency which will require me to even rush. In the back of my mind, I feel it's not right. At the end of the day, everybody has an emergency to go to. Even if it's work you're going to and you're late, it's an emergency. But no one pushes through. So I think it's also instilling in us that kind of attitude where we believe that let's do the right thing. Because really, if we were all to follow through, maybe the traffic situations we even see in Ghana, if we're all abiding by the laws, the churches wouldn't park in those unsanitary places and cause traffic. So, if we all just understand that there are rules and regulations and there are repercussions for not following by them, and they're stringent at that, maybe it will be deterrent enough for all of us to follow through.
Exactly, Nana.
Anyway, guys, that's our rant for today. We have been taking a spin on the issue of government appointees flouting the traffic regulations by using sirens and the noise that is accompanied, not only them, but also even citizens like ourselves. And we're asking and calling on everyone to stop, because there are rules and regulations, and we must make sure those rules and regulations are upheld by every citizen of the law, because no one is above the law. We'll take a break. We'll be back. Remember, we are proudly sponsored by NIDO and GTP. Stay with us. This year in Ghana, the financial sector has been hit with a lot of challenges, including mergers and also some financial agencies giving up and closing down. And this has led to some customers of Men's Gold, aggrieved customers at that, planning on hitting the streets with a demonstration. They have petitioned some offices and are going further to make sure that they are paid their dividends. But joining us in studio to discuss this very sensitive issue is Professor Cletus Dodonu. He is an economist and the CEO of Claydod Consult. Good afternoon, Prof.
Good afternoon, Madam.
I want to start off with the Men's Gold situation because it's very, touchy, if I'll put it. Recently, we heard that some aggrieved members of Men's Gold are planning to hit the streets with a demonstration and also have petitioned some agencies, particularly the Ministry of Finance, asking that they ensure that Men's Gold pays their dividends. from the point where you are an economist, how feasible is this? Because we understand Ministry of Finance cannot ask Men's Gold to pay. Help us sort this confusion out.
Well, it's a very dicey situation where a company does the wrong thing and government has to bail them out. It happened with DKM and Men's Gold is another one. However, I think we should look at the fear of precedence.
Okay.
When we set the precedence and another institution is in trouble, then they are crying.
Exactly.
Oh, it's now my turn. You don't want to do it for me, but you did it for X, Y, Z.
Right.
Then it becomes a problem. And I think government should put a ban, that's my personal view, on helping those who contribute to their own woes, except the poor and the vulnerable. Men's Gold is not poor. They expose themselves. They are not allowed to take deposits. And they are even arguing that they didn't take deposits. But you made the people to pay in advance. And even for that, you need to get authorization because you are dealing with people's money. And when you hold it, were you able to gain the interest that is required? So I think it's a dicey issue, and I'm personally not happy that it should be paid.
So what I wanted to find out is this whole problem that we've had in the financial sector, particularly having to do with the massive loss of investments that we've seen. Would you say it's an issue of a lack of financial and investment literacy among the populace, or is just an insatiable desire for people to make quick money?
I think I will go with the latter.
Okay.
You see, when you see financial institutions, they are made up of institutions. You can call them banks, you can call them savings and loan, we can call them credit, and so on and so forth. All of them together, when they operate and they are good, they can help develop the financial sector. No one single bank, savings and loan, micro finance, and so on, one single institution can make the whole industry survive and develop. However, one institution, one bank or whatever, can destroy the whole financial sector. And that is what is happening to us. And this is where I think greed is also one of the factors. People want quick money. And I also think it's mainly this corporate governance, the principles that go with them. We must adhere to them. It's surprising to hear that Bank of Ghana officials are also occasionally involved. And then you are supposed to be the supervising agent, and we have SEC. It's disturbing to hear that some of them are involved in such activities. So one begins to wonder if really we don't have to rehaul our financial sector. I think currently the effect is going down slowly, but I wish it can go faster so that people feel more comfortable, because, you know, when we say money, people think it's that paper which is money. The paper is not the money. The effort, the suffering, the sweat you made to contribute to wealth of nations, to make that money, is what we call money. That's why in some languages, in Ewe, for instance, they say money is blood. It's not just that paper. Otherwise, then let us not work. We will all be printing money and print, whether we'll be eating the money. So we have to get more supervision. Corporate governance must be at the peak. And these greedy ones, one person borrowing almost all the money from we have to stop it. And this is where crime comes in.
The Bank of Ghana has, the Bank of Ghana announced that 22 banks so far have met the minimum requirement. What's your opinion about that?
Well, that is okay as far as I'm concerned. I'm also expecting that there will be some mergers and buyouts here and there because we have too many banks.
We do.
We have too many banks. We need big banks, and with the type of branch banking we do, where, for instance, Ghana Commercial Bank, it's almost all over the place. It's good, and it's only Ghana Commercial Bank, but they have branches in different parts, and the standard is the same for them. You can't say you are Ghana Commercial Bank in Accra, so your operation should differ from Ghana Commercial Bank in no. Their standard is the same unless somebody is trying to play games here and there. So the number is too much. It has to go down.
But do you think the reforms that Bank of Ghana is trying to put in place to make sure that the banking sector is safe is something that all the banks are willing to comply with? Because even when we talk about the men's gold issue, you'd realize that some of their members are still, you know, involved in these kind of things. If they knew better, will they have been involved? So is it that we lack the understanding of what it means to be in the financial sector? Or will this, I mean, what Bank of Ghana is trying to do also really yield results when we've got the bad nuts amongst them?
It's both ways. the regulator has to be on its kill and keep. Tough on this. And then we in the industry, some of the key sources of the difficulties, I would say, is emanating from the boardroom. And then if they don't do it deliberately or lending off the ledger or project management opinion, if it is some corporate finance or whatever, then it means information is not reaching the board. Because the board members are supposed to be, and they are in Ghana. If you hear of those who are in the boardroom business, that is very serious group. And yet, so they also can be held responsible when things go wrong.
For those who've lost their jobs and those who may lose their jobs because, I mean, the upheavals are still ongoing in the banking sector, should there be a structure to absorb them so that, you know, they don't compound the unemployment rate that we're currently grappling with?
Yes, something has to be done. You know, when it comes to humanity, it's not only survival, but you survive decently. These are people, some are parents, fathers, mothers. They have been working for a long time, maybe minimum 10 years, 20 years. All of a sudden, owing to no fault of theirs, they may be doing their job very well done. There is crisis and they have to go. It's not easy. Some people, they have not gone through it, so to them it's one of those things. But the social dimensions of our survival is critical. And personally, I think on one of the TV shows, I said that I would prefer the money going to DKM to go to some of these people who are getting unemployed, so that they have some unemployment benefits. However, I believe strongly that it will not last for long for jobs to open, even in the financial sector. I believe strongly. So we can take care of them temporarily. Let them not suffer. And some of them died. Some had stroke and so on. So I think government should also rather consider those things, not men's gold.
Certainly, we hear you loud and clear. Prof, finally, your thoughts on the projections for the financial sector in 2019?
There will be some laxity initially, and I think Bank of Ghana should come very strong that there is no financial crisis in Ghana. There is no financial crisis. But people are still trying to redeem their monies, withdrawing and so on. When you withdraw the money, where are you going to take the money to? It's better to leave the money there to be earning some 12. You can put it in treasury bill and bonds and so on. But the rate of withdrawal is so high. Right. There is no money financial crisis in Ghana. There is no banking crisis in Ghana. We know when there is crisis. You can see it, really. But this one, I think we should not hurt ourselves. Okay. You can't do so bad to yourself and hurt your economy. We need the banking sector for the survival of the whole.
Indeed, we need the banking sector for the survival of the whole. And so you're all being advised to make sure your money is banked rather than unbanked so we don't hurt the financial system of Ghana. We have been speaking to Professor Cletus Dodonu. He is an economist and CEO of Claydot Consult about the banking crisis that we thought we were facing. But he clarifies it saying there is no crisis in Ghana. Let's be rest assured the Bank of Ghana, the regulator, is putting in stringent measures to make sure our financial sector is safe. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more here on Captured by Women. Stay with us.
Thanks for staying with us. So on the subject of gender-based violence, we can never stop talking about it, nor advocating about it. This week, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection launched a 16-day activism campaign against gender-based violence to create awareness about it and to drive home the point that this needs to end. But we know that the whole agenda about gender-based violence has been going on for some time. So what is different about this particular intervention? We've been joined in the studio by Madame Awo Aidam Amenya, who is the Executive Director of J Initiative, to discuss this further. Awo, good afternoon and thanks for joining us once again.
Yeah, good afternoon.
How have you been?
Comme si, comme ça.
Well, it's certainly good to see you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here too.
All right. So just give us a broad overview. I mean, before we get down to the nitty-gritties, what is this whole campaign about?
16 days of activism against gender-based violence is a campaign which was launched in 1991.
Okay.
Aimed at creating awareness on issues that affect women.
Okay.
So globally, it's celebrated. It starts on the 25th of November, which is International Day to Eliminate Violence Against Women, and then ends on the 10th of December, which is International Human Rights Day.
Okay.
So in between those days, there are other special UN days which are observed to still raise awareness on the issues and inform people about what to do and all other actions that would help put an end to gender-based violence. Okay. So that is what it is. And I think the recent report I was reading about the convenience of the campaign, it looks more like a lot is being done around awareness creation, but very little is done in terms of action, targeted action to really, really reduce violence against women or gender-based violence in itself. So I feel that it's about time we sit down, take into account all the actions we've taken so far. How impactful have they been? Are they results driven or they are just hashtag driven? We can have a hashtag driven campaigns which will not yield any results. Because again, when we talk about safety of women, we're talking about protection aspect and we're talking about provision. So for me, awareness creation is a form of provision. We are building their capacity, we are empowering them to speak up and all of that. But what is the system to which they're going to be speaking to? If they report cases, how are they handled? Now, so I would take the discussion offline and now bring it online. So I'm looking at technology facilitated
Exactly.
abuse, which is also a form of domestic violence that women are suffering, because again, the impact of that is so great. Most women end up developing low self-esteem. They end up being afraid of themselves, and they are just there. I mean, always coerced to do things, always timid, always having all manner of things which could lead to mental health issues as well for women.
Right.
So I feel that once the day has come, it's important we draw people's attention to some of those vices online as
Well,
well.
you raised a very sensitive part of it, which is the technology and the use of it and how it's increasing or perpetuating gender-based violence. But to the ordinary person out there who probably is suffering it but doesn't even know, what does the technological part of, you know, gender-based violence look like?
You have offended your boyfriend or your husband, and then you stepped out of the house, and the next moment, all manner of SMS, saying all manner of inappropriate words to you, which is actually affecting your person. Sometimes you are in a meeting and calls keep coming. The same person calling. Other times you are just there, you have a car, and then there's a phone hidden in the car actually. And the purpose of the phone is to monitor where you go at a given time. Sometimes you are home and you have children, and maybe your partner brings a gift. It could be a teddy bear, it could be a game console for the children, but within that is an installed device,
a monitoring device
meant to monitor you. So you are being stalked, you are being monitored, you are being harassed, you are being intimidated. I mean, in all forms. So in the end, some women end up tolerating that and then closing themselves off entirely. Other times, it could be economical. Your account details, because it's connected to an email address, the email password is changed, so you find it difficult to have access to the account. Sometimes it's about photos that maybe you have taken with your partner, and your partner, because you have said maybe you are walking out of the relationship or you are not doing something right, so to speak, your partner threatens you to share some of those images on whatever platform and all of that. You can imagine the kind of fear it puts in you. So most women are enduring that kind of situation, and they don't know who to speak to and where to go to. So that is a form of violence that we haven't paid attention to yet, and we need to be looking at that.
The theme for this year's campaign is interesting. We talk about Orange the World, Hear Me Too. What's the significance of Orange in this whole campaign?
The theme is actually the other way around, but the Orange the World, Hear Me Too is a hashtag that is being used to carry the message across. The assumption is that for us in this part of the world, we haven't bought into the Me Too campaign. So Hear Me Too is about making a case. Okay, let's give listening ear to girls who complain about or who talk about their abuses, be it sexual, be it physical, whatever form it takes. We need to give them a listening ear, because it is not always a case of us shunning them. I was following a Twitter feed the other time, and it got so nasty. The young lady came out to speak, and most people were like, "You are a bad girl. What did you go to do in the boys' room?"
That's always the narrative.
Yes, and I found that I felt sad at that, because if I have a sister, or even if I go through a situation like that, I think nobody will be there to speak for me.
Exactly.
And she came out later to say that no, it's not an issue of she pretending to have been raped. She's not saying she doesn't know what sex is. But so long as it hasn't been done with her consent, it's rape. And she's talking about it. So it's about creating that awareness within the society that things like that happen, and it doesn't always mean that the victim is at fault. It doesn't always mean that the victim has made herself available. It doesn't always mean that the victim has dressed in a way which has lured the perpetrator. I mean, don't we all have feelings?
You know, for me, and as I said in my introductory remark, we've had campaigns for years on gender-based violence. And it's actually shocking to realize that people still victimize the victim. People still see the victim, especially the woman, as the one that invites the violence. What has been the missing link?
We have, like we said, we have made awareness creation key, but the protection bit, which is the action, is not there. So all the other offenses which have been committed over the years, what has been the sanctions? Are they deterring enough to prevent the people from engaging in it? They are not. And how are we accepting it? We even, you even hear women supporting other women against a fellow woman. And you said, well, oh, okay, where have we gone wrong? So I feel that we don't work into a system that will be available for us to measure and see what impact we're making and put in a remedial action in order to correct some of the things. Because you can be charting a path, but until someone at your back tells you that it's not straight, you wouldn't know. So that is something we are not doing. We get up, we jump onto campaigns, we jump onto hashtags, we run with them without having focus and direction.
Or measuring.
Yes. Because if we are going by Hear Me Too or Me Too or Orange the World or whatever, America has a standard they are using. They have indicators they are using to measure. Canada would have their own indicators because there are issues prevalent in their region. What is our own measure? What are the issues with us? Has it got to do with teenage pregnancy? Has it got to do with child marriage? Has it got to do with menstruation? I mean, are those the issues? If those are the issues, let's see how we can address those issues within the 16 days of activism rather than just biting so much and not having anything to measure at the end of the day.
You know, when we talk about this issue, my heart breaks because in this particular week, there was a comedian who took to Twitter and passed a tweet about one of the musician or the artist's daughter who's growing up and says she's ready and ripe to be eaten. And that was unfortunate. And to follow the tweets, the replies people had given, literally consenting to that comment he had passed. And that, for me, in this 16 days of activism, he chose no better day than that day to bring it. And it just makes us feel that we probably are not making any impact. And so that's why people may not also actively talk about it anymore. Because we've spoken about it for many years, but we don't seem to see the change we so desire.
Yes, to some extent you are right. But again, you know, culture is part of us. It's a deep-seated thing in us. So when we want to address issues which has linkages to culture, it's important we sit down, discuss, come up with workable solutions and not imbibe in somebody's concept of addressing the issue. This issue that the guy, I think is Worries or something, yes, that guy, what he said, I mean, you have people supporting because it's a patriarchal society. So the man is always, I mean, people say things and go scot-free. And even ladies past says these comments without knowing. So we need to sit back and reflect and say, okay, what is our definition of gender-based violence?
And what is our reality in that space?
What is the reality for us in the space? How do we address it? Even if it's about addressing it bit by bit, community by community, I feel it will be more impactful than going by the bandwagon and not having any impact at the end of the day, because it's more like photo opportunities after 16 days. Nothing to measure. So we need to start doing that, even not necessarily with government, even as individuals, as small organizations. It's about time we sit down, define what it is. When you come to me, for instance, if you ask me what is 16 days against activism against gender-based violence, in as far as our organization is concerned, I'll tell you it's menstrual hygiene. I don't see why there should be tax on sanitary pads. So that should be dealt with. And that is the only message I have. Somebody else is working on child marriage. So that should be the message. Targeted message, targeted at the right people, with forceful impact for us to get results.
I would like to take us back to the conversation around the technology-related gender-based violence.
Okay.
I know that statistics are really hard to come by, but from where you sit and from what you do, when we look at the general statistics when it relates to gender-based violence, do you know whether it's on the rise or it's on the decline, and whether you have a sense as to the scale, I mean the scale of technology in contributing to gender-based violence?
Right. I would say it's on the rise.
Okay.
And unfortunately, most people don't even know they are subjecting themselves to domestic violence or technology-facilitated abuse. So that is where the concern is for me. There was a news item the other time when a lady said a boyfriend had shared her nude photos on their church platform, and she was expelled from the choir and all of that. And she went to the police to report first. She didn't report that aspect. She reported of the guy taking the phone from her. I mean, so she waited after 6 months to report the sharing, non-consensual sharing of their photos. And so I asked about that. I was like, why did you wait that long? She said, oh, people told her that she would be embarrassed. So that is why she waited. Now, someone has told you, okay, you can make money out of it, so you are taking action. By which time the guy had already wiped out the evidence, so there's nothing to show for it. So for me, that is why it's important we need to make women understand that gender-based violence is not only in the physical space now. We have a digital space where it's happening in. And when you go online, there are 3 categories of women online who suffer violence. First category is those without the skills, digital literacy or ability to use the phone effectively. That's one group. The second group is survivors of domestic violence. When they go online, they get abused more because their partners use other mediums. They coerce them. They know that they believe in one thing or another. They use those same things through other people to continue the abuse. So the continuous abuse is there. And the third group of people is, I don't know if I should call them celebrities or prominent people or something, which is in the category of politicians, artists, and all of that. Those 3 groups of women suffer most online. So for me, if we want to address issues of gender-based violence, we need to start tackling that, building the capacity of our young girls to know that, okay, this one doing this to you does not mean this. There are ABC steps you could take, either to silence the person, to mute the person, to report the person, and all of that. But all of that must be built around a system that we have put in place to help support and protect women. Until we do that, we will be there one day and we'll hear the unexpected, and everybody will go like, oh, we should have done ABC. Yes.
But there have been calls for men to be bold enough to also report abusive relationships, or whether when they go through any abuse of a sort. Do you think this will yield any results, particularly taking our cultural setting?
Anyway, I think the last time I was speaking to Dosu, men are reporting.
Okay.
But I don't know what percentage of them report. But I think there are men who are bold enough to say that, oh, okay, yes, a woman can abuse me. My wife is too huge and she bullies me all the time, so I have every reason to report and stuff like that. I don't know how far we could take it, but if we continue to have such situations in the society, then we could know that the children are going to suffer in the end because they are seeing those things and seeing them as a normal way of life. So you can imagine what will happen in future. So we have a lot of work to do as adults in the society, as media persons in the society, and we need the grace of God to take us.
We do. We certainly do. Yeah. Well, I think you wrapped it up beautifully for us that we have a lot of more work to do, and we need the grace of God to be able to do that. We have been talking to Madam Awo Aidam Amenya, who is the Executive Director of J Initiative, about gender-based violence, and we looked at it from several angles. We looked at the technologically driven side of it. We looked at the physical space. We looked, about the cultural setting that promotes gender-based violence. And the key message or takeaway is that we need to measure all the interventions and all the campaigns that we're doing. I hope that you have picked one or two things from it. And the most important message here is that we need to speak up. We need to talk about it and to stop this menace that, is basically rippling our nation apart. The show continues. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Well, it has been a very interesting show here on Captured by Women. First, we spoke about government vehicles that flout traffic regulations and also citizens alike who copy suit. And we are saying that everyone must put a stop to this and the police must be empowered to make sure that they enforce the strict sanctions that come with flouting these rules. Then we also touched on the economic status of Ghana. We were told by Professor Cletus Dedonu that indeed there is no financial crisis. Ghanaians must make sure that their monies are banked rather than unbanked to make sure that the financial sector is safe for all of us and we don't cripple it. Then we also finally touched on 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and the theme is Orange the World, Hear Me Too. And we had a very interesting discussion on the fact that females especially and children are being abused in ways that are unspoken of, and we have spoken about the way to champion this to make sure it ends. Remember, the show is proudly sponsored by GTP and Nido. Well, I hope you have a good Saturday because it's the 1st of December and certainly you should be blessed for seeing this day. It has been myself and Rosemond, and it's goodbye from us. See you same time next week. Have a blessed day. Bye.
Bye.